Get away from here! The boy didn't move. He stood right at the edge of her gate, fingers curled around the cold metal bars, looking at her like he hadn't heard her the first time. I said go! The old woman snapped, stepping forward with more force than her age should have allowed. Her voice cut through the quiet suburban street. Windows shifted, curtains moved. People were listening. They always listened when she shouted. But the boys didn't run. He couldn't have been more than 7. Small, skin the color of deep cocoa. A backpack hanging loosely off one shoulder like it had been packed in a hurry. You're going to get yourself hot standing there, she said, her voice lower now but sharper. Didn't your parents teach you not to come near this house? The boy blinked, then asked, why? That one word hit differently. The old woman froze for half a second, not long, but long enough. Because I said so, she replied quickly, her tone rising again. Now, go! The boy looked at the yard behind her, at the empty swing set, at the space where grass refused to grow properly, then back at her. You don't like kids? He asked. Something in her face changed, fast, almost invisible. I don't like questions, she said, but her voice wasn't as steady now. The boy shifted his weight slightly, still not leaving. I think you're lonely, he said. And that was the first time in years that someone had said something to her that didn't sound like fear, or anger, or judgment, just observation. The old woman's jaw tightened. You think you know something about me? She asked quietly. The boy shrugged, then said, I just know you don't have to shout like that. The silence fell between them. Heavy, uncomfortable. Then the old woman stepped forward again. Faster this time. Go home, she shouted. The boy flinched, but still didn't run. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulled something out and held it up. A small folded piece of paper. I made this for you, he said. The old woman stared at it, didn't move, didn't reach for it. Take it, the boy added softly. She couldn't, because something about that moment, something about that small hand holding something meant for her, felt too familiar, too close, and too dangerous. Before we go any further, if you like stories like this, stay with me and tell me, where are you watching from? Now, let me tell you why nobody in that neighborhood let their children walk past her gate. Nobody walked past her gate if they could help it. Not the kids, not the parents, not even the delivery drivers. They crossed the street instead. It wasn't written anywhere. Not a sign, not even a warning. Just something everyone knew. Don't go near that house. The yard gave it away itself. Grass uneven, patches of dirt showing through like something had been dug up and never settled properly. A rusted swing set stood in the middle, still. It hadn't moved in years, not even in the wind. And the house itself, always quiet, too quiet. The blinds stayed half closed. Lights turned on at the same time every evening, off at the same time every night. Routine, rigid, uninviting. And then there was her, Mrs. Nkem Okorie, late 60s, dark skin that had weathered into something strong and unyielding. Her back slightly bent but not weak, just shaped by time. She moved slowly, but her voice, sharp enough to cut through walls. Didn't I tell you not to run past here? She snapped one afternoon, stepping onto her porch. 2 boys froze mid-step. They hadn't even touched her gate. Sorry, ma, one of them muttered. Sorry doesn't fix foolishness, she shot back. Use your legs properly and go somewhere else. They ran. Not because she chased them, because they knew better. It had been like this for years. At first, people tried to be understanding. She's just old, some said. Maybe she's been through something, others added. But time passed and understanding turned into distance, because Mrs. Okorie didn't just avoid children. She pushed them away, hard. Take your noise somewhere else. This is not a playground. Where are your parents? Same words, same tone, every time. Until eventually, parents stopped letting their kids walk that side of the street at all. Safer that way, cleaner, no need for explanations. However, across the road, Mrs. Grant from the corner house watched it happen again. Another child running, another shout, another retreat. She shook her head slowly. She wasn't always like that, she murmured to herself. But nobody asked her to explain, because nobody really wanted to know, except the new family. They had just moved in 3 houses down, boxes still on the porch, curtains not fully up yet, the kind of present that hadn't learned the neighborhood rules. Their son noticed the house on the second day. Of course he did. Kids always notice what adults try to ignore. Why doesn't anyone go there? He asked his mother, pointing toward the rusted swing. His mother glanced once, then looked away. Because people mind their business, she said. But that answer didn't satisfy him. Because kids don't understand distance the way adults do. They don't understand history or silence or things people don't say out loud. They just see a house, a yard, a swing that looked like it's waiting. So on the 3rd day, he walked over and stood at the gate, right where nobody else did. And that's where we started. His name was Chima, 7 years old, the kind of child who asked questions before thinking about whether he should. Not rude, not loud, just curious in a way that didn't know how to stop. He had only been in the neighborhood 3 days, long enough to notice patterns, not long enough to respect them. On the 1st day, he saw the house, didn't think much of it. On the 2nd day, he saw the swing, tilted slightly to one side, chains still intact, seats worn down from use that clearly hadn't happened in years. That stayed with him. By the 3rd day, he had decided something, not out loud, not even fully formed in his head, just a quiet conclusion that made sense to him. Nobody goes there, so maybe nobody checks. That morning, his mother had been busy unpacking, boxes everywhere, kitchen half organized, voices on the phone. Chima, don't go too far, she called from inside. I won't, he answered quickly, almost halfway out the door. He didn't run. That made it feel like he was doing something wrong. He walked, slow and deliberate, across the street, toward the house everyone avoided. The gate wasn't locked. That surprised him, because if something is truly off limits, you expect it to be closed. But this one, just there, waiting. He wrapped his fingers around the metal bars, cold. He pressed his face slightly between them, trying to see more of the yard, the swing, the patchy ground, the silence. Then he heard her. Not footsteps, not movement, just presence. You're standing in the wrong place. Chima turned slowly and saw her. Mrs. Okorie stood on the porch, not close, not far, just enough distance to make it clear she had seen him before he saw her. She didn't step forward immediately, just watched him, eyes sharp, not confused, not surprised, just measuring. Chima didn't move, didn't run, didn't even let go of the gate. Didn't your mother tell you to stay away from here? She asked. He thought about it, then said, no. A pause, not long, but enough. Mr. Courier stepped down from the porch. One step, then another, not rushing, but not slow either. You don't belong here, she said. Chima looked around, at the yard, at the swing again, then back at her. It's just a yard, he said. Her jaw tightened slightly. It's not your yard, she replied. That's okay, he said. I'm not taking it. That almost broke something in her expression, but it didn't stay long enough to see clearly. You like asking questions, she said. He nodded. That's how you get into trouble, she replied. I don't think so, he said. Another pause. Then he pointed at the swing. Why don't you use it? He asked. That did it. Mr. Corrier's entire body shifted. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough. Enough for the air to change. That's not your concern, she said sharply. Chima blinked, then said something simple, something small, something that didn't sound important, but landed harder than anything else had so far. It looks like it's waiting, he said. Silence. Real silence. Mrs. Okorie stopped moving, didn't step closer, didn't step back, just stood there. Because that word, waiting, hadn't been said out loud in a very long time. Go home, she said again. But this time, her voice wasn't as sharp. Chima didn't argue, didn't push. He just stood there a second longer, then reached into his bag, pulled out a piece of paper, folded carefully. I made this, he said. She didn't move. It's for you, he added. She stared at it, like it wasn't just paper, like it was something else entirely, something she wasn't ready to hold. I don't take things from strangers, she said. Chima nodded, then did something unexpected. He stepped forward, opened the gates just slightly, and placed the folded paper on the ground inside, then stepped back, closed it again. You don't have to take it now, he said. And for the first time, he turned to leave. Mrs. Okorie watched him go, didn't stop him, didn't call him back, just stood there, looking at the paper lying on the ground inside her yard. And something inside her shifted. Not enough to change anything, not yet, but enough to make the next moment harder than it should have been. Because now, it wasn't just a child at her gate, it was a memory, walking back toward her. Mrs. Okorie didn't pick up the paper that day. She left it where it was, on the ground, inside the gate. She stepped back onto the porch, sat in the same chair she always sat in, and stared at nothing. But her eyes kept drifting back to that folded piece of paper, like it was alive. By evening, the light had shifted. Sun dropped behind the houses. The shadows stretched across the yard. The paper hadn't moved, neither had she. When the street finally went quiet, she stood up, slowly, careful, like the ground might give way if she stepped too fast. She walked toward the gate, stopped just before it, looked down. The paper still sat there, exactly where the boy had left it, waiting. Her hand tightened slightly at her side. Then, after a long moment, she bent down, picked it up. Her fingers trembled just slightly. She didn't unfold it right away, just held it, feeling the edges, the softness of it, like she already knew what it would do. Then she opened it, a drawing, crayon, uneven lines, simple shapes, a house, a tree, a thick figure standing next to another smaller one, and a swing. Two figures side by side. At the top, written in uneven handwriting, "You don't have to be alone." Mrs. Okorie froze, her breath caught, because something about the drawing, something about those two figures was too familiar. And just like that, the years unfolded. There used to be laughter in that yard. Real laughter. The kind that didn't echo because it was too full. Children ran through that same patch of grass, back when it grew properly. Back when the swing didn't creak like it was remembering something. Mrs. Okorie stood in the same place, but she wasn't the same woman then. She smiled more, spoke softly, opened her gate without thinking. "Come inside," she would say. "Don't just stand there." They trusted her. That was the part that stayed. Not the laughter, not the noise, the trust. It wasn't her business, not officially, but everyone in the neighborhood knew. If you needed someone to watch your child for a few hours, you could knock on her door. And someone always did. That day, it was Mrs. Bello. Her voice was rushed and apologetic. "Please, just for a little while," she said. I'll be back before evening. The boy stood behind her, small, quiet, holding onto his mother's dress. Mrs. Okorie knelt slightly. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Obi," he said. She smiled. "Come in, Obi." It felt like any other day. That's what made it worse. The afternoon moved slowly. Obi sat at the table drawing, crayons spread out, tongue slightly out in concentration. Mr. Okorie moved through the house, cleaning, checking, listening. At some point, it got quiet. Not unusual. Children get quiet when they are focused. She wiped her hands on a cloth. "Obi," she called. No answer. She walked into the room. The chair was empty. The crayons were still there. The paper still on the table. But Obi was gone. Her chest tightened instantly. "Obi," she called again, louder. Still nothing. She moved faster now, through the house, into the hallway, back to the living room, then the yard. The gate was open, just slightly, and the swing was moving, not hard, not fast, just enough. Her breath stopped. She stepped forward, her heart pounding now, louder than her thoughts. "Obi!" No answer. Then she saw him, at the base of the swing, still. Too still. The world narrowed. Sound dropped away. She ran, faster than she had in years, dropped to her knees, hands shaking as she reached for him. "Obi! Obi!" No response. His chest wasn't moving. Her mind tried to catch up, tried to fix it, tried to understand. She turned him slightly, checked his face, his mouth. "Breathe," she whispered, like he could hear her. "Breathe." Her hands fumbled, her thoughts scattered. She didn't know what she missed, didn't know how long he had been there, didn't know what had gone wrong. Only one thing stayed clear: he was in her care, and now he wasn't breathing. The sirens came too late. They always do. People gathered. Voices rose. Questions came. What happened? How long was he alone? Where were you? Mrs. Okorie didn't answer. She couldn't, because there was only one answer in her head. One sentence, looping, relentless. You were supposed to be watching him. Mrs. Bellow's cry cut through everything. Not anger, not words, just pain. And that was worse than anything anyone could have said. After that day, no one brought their children to her door again. They didn't have to say anything. They just stopped coming. The swing stayed, but no one used it. The yard stayed, but no one entered it. And Mrs. Okorie stayed exactly where she was, except something inside her changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough. She stopped opening the gate, then she stopped speaking first, then she stopped smiling, and eventually, she stopped letting children come close at all. Because in her mind, there was one truth she couldn't escape. Children are not safe around you. Back in the present, Miss Okorie stood in her yard, the drawing still in her hand. Her fingers tightened slightly around the paper, because now there was another child standing at her gate, and she didn't know what to do with that. Miss Okorie didn't sleep well that night. She hadn't expected to. The drawing sat at a small table beside her bed. She had placed it there without thinking, then tried not to look at it. But every time she turned, it was there, waiting. By morning, the house felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just unsettled. She moved through her routine anyway. Woke early, boiled water, cleaned the same surfaces she cleaned every day. The kind of routine that keeps thoughts from settling too long. But it didn't work. because every time she passed the table, her eyes caught it. The paper, folded again now, but not forgotten. You don't have to be alone. She shook her head once, sharp, like she could push the words out of the room. Then she picked up her clothes again, kept moving. Outside, the street was waking up. Cars starting, doors opening, voices carrying, and then footsteps. Light, familiar. Mrs. Okorie froze. Not because she didn't know who it was, but because she did. The gate creaked slightly. She didn't turn right away, didn't want to confirm it, but she heard it again. A small hand brushing against metal. Then, "Good morning." She turned slowly. Chima stood there, same place, same posture, like nothing had happened the day before. He wasn't smiling. Not really, just present. Mrs. Okorie's jaw tightened. "You came back," she said. He nodded. "I told you not to," she added. "I know," he said. No apology, no fear, just acknowledgement. That unsettled her more than anything. "You don't listen," she said. "I do," he replied. "I just don't always agree." A pause. Mrs. Okorie stepped forward. Not fast, but not hesitant either. "You think this is a place to come and stand?" she asked. Chima glanced past her, at the yard, at the swing, then back at her. "I think it's quiet," he said. That word again. Quiet. She exhaled slowly. "You need to go home," she said. "I will," he replied, but he didn't move. Instead, he pointed at the table inside. "You kept it," he said. Mrs. Okorie's chest tightened instantly. Her eyes followed his gesture to the drawing. She hadn't meant for him to see that. Hadn't meant to leave it where it was visible. "It was on the ground," she said quickly. "I didn't want it getting dirty." Chima nodded. "That's good," he said. She frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because it means she looked at it," he answered. That landed harder than it should have. Mrs. Okorie crossed her arms slightly. A familiar position, a protective one. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Maybe," he replied. Then, after a small pause, he said something else. "Did you have kids before?" Everything stopped. The air, the movement, the sound. Mrs. Okorie didn't answer, didn't react, but something in her face shifted. Just enough. "That's not your business," she said. Her voice sharpened now, stronger. Chima didn't push, didn't repeat the question. He just looked at her and said, "You act like something happened." Silence. Real silence. Because he wasn't guessing anymore. He was seeing. Mrs. Okorie stepped closer, closer than she had the day before. "You need to leave," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried something else now. Something deeper. "Now!" Chima held her gaze for one more second, then nodded. "Okay," he said. And this time, he turned, walked away. No hesitation, no delay, just gone. Mrs. Okorie stood there, watching him leave. Her arms slowly lowered, and for the first time, she didn't feel relief when the gate was empty again. She felt something else, something unfamiliar, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Later that afternoon, she stepped outside, walked into the yard, stopped beside the swing. Her hand hovered near the chain. Then slowly, she touched it. The metal was cold and stale. And for a moment, just a moment, it felt like everything was about to move again. It didn't happen all at once. Nothing in that house ever did. The afternoon passed quietly. Mrs. Okorie stayed inside. She didn't expect him to come back again. Children don't usually return where they are not wanted. But something about that boy, something about the way he looked at her, made that assumption feel weak. She tried to settle into her routine, boiled water again, wiped the counter again, folded the small clothes twice, but her mind still stayed where she left it. Her mind didn't stay where she left it. It kept returning to one question she didn't want to answer. What if he comes back? By evening, the street had quietened again. Lights came on, doors closed, voices faded. Mrs. Okorie sat in her chair by the window, the same one, the one that faced the yard. She told herself she was just resting, but her eyes kept drifting to the gate, and then movement. Her body reacted before her mind did. She leaned forward slightly. There he was, Chima, standing outside the gate again, not touching it this time, just standing there, waiting. Mrs. Okorie stood up immediately. She stepped outside, faster than she meant to. What the hell did I tell you? She said. Her voice came out sharp again, but not as controlled. Chima didn't answer right away. He looked different, not curious, not calm, something else. I wasn't going to come, he said. That caught her off guard. Then why are you here? She asked. He shifted his weight slightly. My mom's not home yet, he said. Mrs. Okorie frowned. What do you mean? She said she'll be back before it got dark, he replied. She's not answering her phone. Silence. That wasn't her responsibility. That wasn't her concern. That was what she told herself. You should go back to your house, she said. I did, he said. A pause. It's locked. Mr. Okorie felt something tighten in her chest. You don't have a key? He shook his head. She usually opens the door before I get there. The street behind him was quiet. Too quiet. No car pulling in, no footsteps approaching. Just the boy standing there, waiting. And suddenly, this didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like a moment. The kind of moment that decides something. Mrs. Okorie looked at him. Really looked this time. Small shoulders, tired eyes, trying not to show it. And without warning, another image pushed its way into her mind. Obi. Standing in that small space, looking at her the same way, the air shifted. Mrs. Okorie turned away quickly, like she could shake it off. You shouldn't be outside alone, she said. Her voice was different now, lower, less sharp. I know, Chima replied. Silence stretched again, and then he said something quietly. I can just sit by the gate, he added. That broke something. Not loudly, not visibly, but enough. Mrs. Okorie closed her eyes briefly, because she knew that sentence. She had heard it before. I'll just stay here. And she knew what happened the last time she let that happen. Her hand tightened slightly. Then without looking at him, she said, Come inside. Chima blinked. What? I said, come inside, she repeated. Her voice steadier now, but not loud. Just until your mother comes back. He hesitated, because now the situation had changed. You sure? He asked. She turned toward him again, and for the first time, her eyes didn't push him away. They held something else, something careful, something controlled. I'm not going to tell you again, she said. That was the closest thing she had to an invitation. Chima nodded, stepped forward, the gate opened, and just like that, a line that had been closed for years opened again. Every step felt like something she had sworn never to allow again. But she didn't stop him, didn't shout, didn't push him back. She just stood there, letting it happen. And that was the moment everything changed. Chima stepped inside slowly, not because he was afraid, but because he understood in his own way that something about this moment mattered. Mrs. Okoria closed the gate behind him. The sound was small, but it echoed, because that gate hadn't closed behind a child in years. She didn't look at him right away, didn't speak. She walked ahead toward the house. "Take off your shoes before you come in," she said. Her voice was steady, normal, like this was something she said all the time. Chima nodded and followed her. The inside of the house felt different from the outside. Cleaner, warmer, but still quiet. Too quiet. Mrs. Okorie moved toward the kitchen. "Sit there," she said, pointing to the table. He did. His eyes moved around the room, carefully, observant. Then they stopped on the drawing, the one he had made, still on the table. "You kept it here," he said. Mrs. Okorie paused, her back still turned to him. "I told you," she said. "It didn't belong on the ground." "That's not what I meant," he replied. She didn't respond. Instead, she reached for a glass, poured water, set it down in front of him. "Drink," she said. Chima picked it up, drank slowly. The room stayed quiet, not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. After a moment, he spoke again. "Did he like drawing too?" Mr. Okorie froze. The question came out of nowhere, but also not at all. She didn't turn around. "Who?" she asked. "The boy," Chima asked. Chima said. Silence. Then slowly she turned. Her face had changed. Not hard, not sharp, just open. "He liked to sit right there," she said quietly, nodding toward the same spot where Chima was sitting now. Her voice didn't shake, but something inside it did. "He didn't talk much either," she added. Chima nodded, like that made sense to him. "What happened to him?" he asked. The question stayed in the air for a long time. Mrs. Okorie walked to the table, slowly, carefully. She placed her hand on the back of the chair across from him, the one that had been empty for years, and then she sat down. That alone was something new. "I was supposed to be watching him," she said. No explanation, no defense, just truth. Chima didn't interrupt, didn't ask anything else. He just listened, because sometimes that's all a person needs. Miss Okorie looked down at her hands. "They trusted me," she added. A small pause. "And I did. I let something happen." The words didn't come out easily, but they came. And that mattered. Chima looked at her, then said something simple. "You didn't mean to." Miss Okorie's breath caught, because no one had said that to her before. Not the neighbors, not the parents, not even herself. She looked up at him, and for the first time, she didn't see a child she needed to push away. She saw someone who wasn't afraid of her, someone who didn't already believe she was the worst thing that had ever happened, and something inside her finally let go. Not everything, not all at once, but it was enough. A knock came at the door. Both of them turned. Mrs. Okorie stood up, walked slowly to the door, opened it. Chima's mother stood there, breath slightly uneven, eyes searching. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "I got held up. I was calling." Then she saw him, safe, sitting at the table. Her shoulders dropped instantly. "Thank you," she said, looking at Mrs. Okorie. And for the first time in years, Mrs. Okorie didn't turn away from that word. She nodded, just once. Chima stood up, grabbed his bag, then looked back at her. "Can I come back tomorrow?" he asked. A pause, a real one. Mrs. Okori looked at him, then at the yard outside, the swing, the space, and finally she said, "We'll see." But her voice wasn't pushing him away anymore, and that was enough. Chima smiled small, then walked out with his mother. The door closed. Mrs. Okori stood there for a moment, then turned, walked slowly back into the house, past the table, past the drawing, and toward the window. She looked out at the yard, at the swing, and this time, it didn't feel like something that had stopped. It felt like something that might start again. Sometimes, people don't need to be forgiven by others. They need to stop blaming themselves. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to this channel. We tell stories like this every week. And tell me, what would you have done if you were her? Stay kind and don't ignore the moments that matter.